I'm a student of St. Anne's Girls High School, Molete, badan. I'm 14 years old. The title of my story is Pride Comes Before a Fall. Afalake Adams was a lady of 22 years. She was endowed with everything a lady wishes to have: sparkling set of white teeth, long black ebony hair, and her oval-shaped face brought out the beauty of it all, enabling her nut brown eyes to shine when the sun shone. Afalake was a final year student in the University of Lagos. Afalake's mother was a trader who bought and sold gold jewelries, and her father was a businessman who owned a wine store and two large hotels. Afalake had a friend named Shola. Afalake's father was the one sponsoring Shola's education due to the fact that Shola's father was imprisoned for 6 years for a crime he did not commit. Afalake prided herself in her beauty that she had nothing to do with men. Her behavior towards men worried her mother and Shola. One day, when Afalake and Shola went to a restaurant to discuss of Afalake's dad's birthday party. When they were done discussing, Shola decided to order. When the waiter came, he took their order. And then, Afalake was busy going through her purse at that moment. So the waiter turned to her and said, "And what would the pretty lady like?" But Afalake flared up at the word pretty because she was like, out of all the men in the world, it was a common waiter that called her pretty. Afalake eventually burst out of the restaurant after emptying a glass of water on the waiter's head. Shola left, whispering a "I'm sorry" to the waiter. When they got to the car, Shola decided to scold Afalake. "It's not fair. It's not just fair. He was only doing his job." But Afalake was too angry to listen to anything, so she ordered Shola out of the car. Shola was dazed, but she obliged and got out. The quarrel between Afalake and Shola was eventually settled 2 days before Afalake's dad's birthday. At the party, while Shola and Afalake were sharing drinks to guests, a black Mercedes-Benz pulled up in the driveway. A young man of 24 years and two other guys in flowing agbada alighted. Chioma, Afalake's friend, was the one who invited the men on the account of doing business with Afalake's father. The guy who alighted first, Tony, was eventually introduced to Afalake. It was clear that Afalake has already fallen in love with the guy. The guy, Tony, excused Afalake for a dance. Then that was when she knew that he was a businessman who traveled around the world for different purposes. Before he left that day, they exchanged numbers, and that was when their love affair began. 2 weeks after the party, Afalake and Tony were now lovers. Their love grew rapidly that a day came. Tony took Afalake to an automat to buy a car. When he got there, he saw a car that interested him, but he claimed that he was unable to purchase the car. Afalake reassured him and said she would pay, so she paid for the car and hers. Since that incident, whenever Tony took Afalake out on a date or dinner, Afalake did most of the paying. His excuses were always he was investing in a new business or he was out of cash at that moment, and Afalake will always shrug it off. Afalake's behavior towards men worried her mother, because for a girl who has never fallen in love before, she was acting like she had. Shola decided to have a little chat with her friend, so she called her one Sunday afternoon and sat her down. She said, Afalake, my friend, you know, since you started your relationship with Tony, I have not been around much. Afalake was like, why? Then Shola continued saying, well, it's because I cannot stand it the way he treats you. He treats you like an ATM, Shola. Afalake, before Shola could finish what she was saying, Afalake blurted out, insulting Shola that she was a useless best friend trying to snatch her boyfriend from her. She told Shola to leave her house, that she does not want to see her tiny leg in her house again. 3 days after that incident, Tony took Afalake out on a date. He told Afalake that he was ashamed to be telling her this, but he needed some money for a new contract. And he told her that the money was 2 million naira. Afalake said that she does not have that cash at that moment, but she will see what she could do in the next 1 month. Tony said he would be patient for her. A month later, Afalake provided 3 million for Tony. She said that since he was patient, she decided to add more to it. Tony traveled out of the country few weeks after he received the money. It was then that Afalake realized that she was pregnant for Tony. She was so excited that she did not want to call Tony to tell him about the news, so she waited till he came. When Tony came and she told him the news, Tony was not that excited as she was. After that day, Tony rarely took her out on date or dinner, and he barely texted her. It got to a point that he didn't even do any of those at all. So Afalake decided to go to his house to find out what's going on, but she realized that he has moved out of that house. So she decided to go to her friend Chioma to tell her about what was going on. Chioma gave Tony's new address to Afalake, and Afalake did not hesitate to go there. When she got there, Tony was holding a little girl in his hand, and she told him everything. That, why did you abandon me like that? After I told you about the pregnancy, you've been ghosting me, like what's going on? Then Tony was like, he's not responsible for the baby, that she should take the baby back to the father because he's not going to take any responsibility